Hello, dear students, and welcome to this discussion on Sukumar Rai's Abul Tabul, especially Ramgarurer Chhana or the Sons of Ramgaroo. All right, now before I directly go into the poem, let me give you a sort of a brief discussion on the poem itself. Okay, on the basis on which we are going to uh, develop our argument of the poem. Okay, so let's first discuss those issues and then go into our discussion of the poem itself. Now you see, the poem is a humorous one. That much we can all agree upon. Now, Louis Rubin, okay, Louis Rubin in a book called The Comic Imagination in American Literature. The Comic Imagination in American Literature. The author Louis Rubin, says something very interesting. In the introduction, Rubin says, writing about humor and humorists is perforce an awkward business. For after all, the humor is funny. It is aimed at the risibilities designed to make the reader laugh, not think. So when one sets out to think about it and to subject it to analysis, there is always the lurking suspicion that in doing so, one is not only responding improperly, but behaving just as a trifle ridiculously. All right. Now, what happens is that this shows the problem which is inherent in the significance of humor in any serious discussion, whether in literature, in politics, or in anywhere. Now, this problem can be traced back to the days of Plato and Aristotle. Basically, since the times of Plato and Aristotle, there has been a series of theoretical praxis judging the relevance of humor in contemporary literature, but the argument has till date remained unresolved. Now, many people have tried to talk about how humor functions. For instance, Bremer has suggested that uh, we see humor as any message transmitted in action, speech, writing, images, or music intended to produce a smile or a laugh. This definition allows us not only to extend our investigations to antiquity, the Middle Ages, and the beginning of the early modern period, but also to pose questions of interest to cultural historians. Who transmits what humor, in which way, to whom, where, and when? Now, if you want the full name of Bremer and the full name of the book, then it is J. Bremer. J. Bremer. And the name of the book is A Cultural History of Humor. Okay, A Cultural History of Humor. So, in this book, Bremer has suggested this very negative attitude towards uh, humor itself. Now, if we go back to Plato and Aristotle, as we have already mentioned, then we'll see that Plato opposes the usage of any form of comic thoughts within his ideal state. And he says, we shall enjoin that such representations be left to slaves or hired aliens, and that they receive no serious consideration whatsoever. No free person, whether woman or man, shall be found taking lessons in them. No composer of comedy, iambic, or lyric verse shall be permitted to hold any citizenship up to laughter, by word or gesture, with passion or otherwise. Even Aristotle, his student, who spoke greatly about comedy in his Poetics, in another book, the name of the book is Nicomachean Ethics. In this book, Aristotle says something very interesting. He says that a jest is a kind of mockery, and lawgivers forbid some kinds of mockery. Perhaps they ought to have forbidden some kinds of jesting. And you'll see that in the Christian tradition, mockery and humor has not been dealt with very, uh, what should I say, very openly or very frankly. If you read Umberto Eco's uh, book, the name of the robe, Umberto Eco offers interpretation of Aristotle's Poetics, where he talks about the second book of Aristotle's Poetics being found, which dealt with comedy, and everybody is poisoned whoever tries to read that book in a cathedral. So you see, starting from the very beginnings of history, cultures have been unfavorable, to say the least, to comedy. And therefore, there is a seriousness in all forms of formal culture. Formal culture does not allow much scope for comedy. And in Ramgaroo Chana, or the Sons of Rangaroo, perhaps Sukumar Rai was trying to hint at this. Now, before I go into the poem itself, I would like to give you certain details. Okay, a few very basic details which will help you in the long run to write your answer. Give me a moment, just a second. Yeah. Now, this poem was first published in an edition in the magazine Shondesh. In a magazine called Shondesh, and the edition we are talking about is the edition of 1918. All right, and it was later published in Sukumar Rai's Abol Tabol in on 19th September 1923. Satyajit Ray's translation, which was published as Nonsense Rhymes by Writers Workshop, came up in 1970. All right. Now, here we see that he is talking about the sons of Ramgaroo, or basically, as it was originally translated by some others, as the Griffin's Grouse. Okay, now the Griffin or the Griffinling, that is Ramguru and Ramguru Rechana, was a very strange creature who was created by Sukumar Rai to talk about the very serious wits of his own time. And Satyajit, this is a very hilarious and beautiful rendition of how Ramgaroo Chhana looks like. And Satyajit, in order to keep the phonemic similarity with the Bengali name, does not translate it as Griffin, but as Ramgaroo. Now look, let me first read the Bengali version, and then I shall go and read the English version of the text. রামগরুরের ছানা হাসতে তাদের মানা হাসির কথা শুনলে বলে হাসবো না 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 সদাই মরে ত্রাসে ওই বুঝি কেউ হাসে এক চোখে তাই মিটমিটিয়ে তাকায় আশেপাশে ঘুম নাহি তার চোখে আপনি বকে বকে আপনারে কয় হাসিস যদি মারবো কিন্তু তোকে যায় না বনের কাছে কিংবা গাছে গাছে দক্ষিণ হাওয়ার সুরসুরিতে হাসিয়ে ফেলে পাছে স্বস্তি নেই মনে মেঘের কোণে কোণে হাসির বাষ্প উঠছে ফেপে কান পেতে তাই শোনে ঝোপের ধারে ধারে রাতের অন্ধকারে জোনাক জলে আলোর তালে হাসির ঠারে ঠারে হাসতে হাসতে যারা হচ্ছে কেবল সারা রামগুরুরের লাগছে ব্যথা বুঝছে নাকি তারা রামগুরুরের বাসা ধমক দিয়ে ঠাসা হাসির হাওয়া বন্ধ সেথায় নিষেধ সেথায় হাসা You see, this is a very beautiful children's poem, and all of us Bengali children, we read these poems and we delighted in these poems when we were young, when we were in our little days. Now, Sukumar Rai presents his readers with an imaginary creature whose name is Ramgaroo. All right. And this imaginary creature, who is the grim or the griffin. If you go to the Western tradition, there you have the griffin, the gargoyle, and so on and so forth. So these are close to Ramgaroo. These are imaginary beings. So Ramgaroo Chhana, or the griffin ling, so as to say, or the griffin's grouse, is basically a very interesting being. Let me read the English translation now. To the sons of Ramgaroo, laughter is a taboo. A funny tale will make them wail. We are not amused, boo-hoo. So the sons of Ramgaroo. And look, this is very interesting because Sukumar Rai talks about Chhana. Now, Chhana is a gender-neutral term. Whereas here we have sons, which is the male progeny. Now, when Sukumar was writing, the male progeny of the educated elite or the social economic elite were the problematic ones. And therefore, Satyajit has very rightly translated it as the male progeny, the sons of. So what happens is that they remain intact in their vow of never to laugh. Now, here Sukumar Rai satirizes the intellectuals who place a very sacred and undue importance to serious and rational discourses, and they forget how to enjoy the lighter, brighter, and sparkly things of life. That is all the other pleasures which are awarded or rewarded by life. Moreover, Ray symbolically pits them against the spirit of a whimsical and nonsensical series of thoughts and actions that do not bend to the tyranny of reason. Basically, what happened was that many people have suggested, including Andrew Robinson, that Sukumar, who was a member of the Brahmo Samaj, Sorry, this spelling is Brahmo, of the Brahmo Samaj, saw actually two generations. The elder generation was too steeped in traditions. They were too steeped in the discussion of heavier things in life, and they could not enjoy the lighter, brighter things in life. And you'll see in any generation, there will be the old people who are always steeped in the importance of the graver, the greater things. And there will be the younger generation who just want to enjoy life. In every generation, this is the problem. And some people would fall, they would belong to this generation, but behave like this generation. And therefore, they would also become the Ramguru Rachana. So, look, to the sons of Ramgaru, laughter is a taboo. So, it's a taboo. Now, what constitutes a taboo? A taboo is something which we are never supposed to do. Now, taboos are religious, taboos are cultural, taboos are social, economic, political, and so on and so forth. But for them, laughter is a taboo. Now, this is a very interesting assertion because in no society is usually laughter a taboo. But look, for them in the society of the Ramguru, laughter is a taboo. And a funny tale will make them wail. Now, a funny tale usually makes us laugh, right? So, laughter is the common expression to a funny tale. But they would wail, that is, they would cry, they would uh, cry very loudly. So, their expression are pitted against the normal. And by going against the norm, these people kind of try to gain a position of importance. We are not amused, boohoo. So they are not saying that they are not amused. So the fact is not that they are not amused, but they maintain a facade where they have to say that we are not amused, boohoo. So hashbo nana nana. So we will laugh at no cost because of the facade that we have put up. So they know if they laugh, then it will basically dilute. Perhaps it will dilute, perhaps it will degrade their already social, their already acquired social importance or social position. They live in constant fear of chuckles far and near, and start and abound at every sound that brings a breath of cheer. So look, they live in constant fear. Why are they afraid? So this is a sign of paranoia. Now, why are they paranoid? Because they are unsure of their own social standing. Now, look, for a common man, it is very easy to laugh, it is very easy to cry because a common man or a common woman is usually open to expressing his or her own genuine emotions. But for a person who is always wearing a mask, who is always putting up a facade, this is a very difficult task to do. So they suffer from a sense of paranoia, constant sense of paranoia. They live in constant fear of chuckles far and near. Now, nobody who is in his right mind would usually be afraid of chuckles far and near, because we know that chuckles do not hinder our appreciation of life. Chuckles do not hinder our uh, existence, our own notions. But you see, what happens is that any form of merriment or any form of or any form of provocation towards a merriment causes in them an anxiety, because they think that they will lose their composure. Now, if it is a natural, genuine composure, then there should not be any form of trouble in keeping your composure. Now, it kind of goes on to show strictly that these creatures are bound by the walls of a self imposed sense of melancholy, where they feel that it is a folly, it is a, what should I say, it is a kind of a mistake to even hear the chuckling which is going on near about, and start and bound at every sound that brings a breath of cheer. Start and bound, that is, they are startled. This start means to be startled. So they startle, and bound, that is, they startle with and get a shock. They are shocked and startled by every sound that brings a breath of cheer. Now, look, what is the importance of a breath of cheer? A breath of cheer usually breaks the monotony of the daily drudgery of our life. But these people think that by giving into that drudgery, they are doing something very important. So they create an air of importance around them. And they know that if even a single chuckle creeps within that air of importance, then they are done for. Because basically, then their importance, the air of importance, the aura of importance that they have created around them would go away. It would fade away. Their peace of mind forfeiting, they sit and keep repeating, we believe in only grieving, happiness is fleeting. So their peace of mind forfeiting, so they let go of their peace of mind, they give up their peace of mind. Forfeiting, to forfeit means to give up. So they kind of give up their peace of mind because they are never in their natural state. It is a mask that they have put up. They are not in their natural, usual state. They sit and keep repeating. So, quite like the thinker, which is a very famous sculpture, so they and keep repeating, it kind of becomes a mantra for them. There is a saying which goes something like this, that if you tell yourself the same thing every day, if you keep telling yourself the same lie every day, even after a certain time, you yourself will start believing that that is true. We believe in only grieving, happiness is fleeting. Now, what happens is that there is a sense of pessimism over here. In these lines, there is a sense of pessimism, or as I personally call it, the Devdas syndrome. Now, this is my own term, don't use it anywhere. Okay. It helps us to understand, it helps us Indians to understand what he means by this. Now, what happens is that you'll see that, say, some of your friends, he or she has had a breakup, and she's pondering or he's pondering over that partner for a long, long time, and we tell them, "Are yeah, Devdas banna band kar." The same thing goes on over here. So this Devdas syndrome goes on. So they are kind of very pessimistic, that we believe in only grieving, happiness is fleeting. Everybody knows that happiness and sorrow, joy and sorrow, it's like a circle, it's like a cycle. It continues, right? As the Sanskrit slok goes, Chakravat parivartante dukkhani cha sukhani cha. and we enjoy the joy part and we dislike the sorrow part. So when the sorrow comes, we think that it's so long, but the joy part becomes so very short. And therefore, we all know that happiness is but fleeting. But simultaneously, it is the joy which makes the sorrow bearable, and it is the sorrow which makes the joy enjoyable. Otherwise, if we are always in joy, we would not think about the darker, deeper things in life. Your sorrow makes you ready for your life, but your joy is what makes your life worthy of living. But if you go on thinking that we believe in only grieving, happiness is fleeting, yes, happiness is fleeting. That means that we should enjoy the very little happiness which is awarded to us by life itself. Rather than that, they always think about all the sorrows in life. They shun the summer breeze that whispers through the trees, for fear the stir of leaf and bird their funny bones should tease. Now, this is a very complex translation. I like this original better. যায় না বনের কাছে কিংবা কাছে আহ, দক্ষিণ হাওয়ার সুরসুরিতে হাসিয়ে ফেলে পাছে. So they do not go near the forest. They do not go over the trees, lest the southern wind should tickle them and make them laugh. But Shotojit has turned that into something very complex. They shun the summer breeze. Nowhere does Sukumar Rai mention the summer breeze. He mentions the southern breeze, but Shotojit translates it as the summer breeze that whispers through the trees. Actually, Jaina boner kache kimba gache gache. So the original meaning was that the Ramgaroos or the sons of Ramgaroo, they do not go near the forest or they do not cling to the trees. But basically, here Satyajit has made this something different that whispers through the trees. For fear the stir of leaf and bird, their funny bones should tease. So basically, what happens over here is that the trees, if the Ramgaroos, this shows something very interesting that the Ramgaroos are part of nature, but they shun nature. Why? Because the trees and the leaves, when they catch the air, whether it be summer or it be southern, whatever it is, and look, when he talks about the summer breeze is very enjoyable after the winter, right? And during the summer, we have the nor'wester, the Kalboishaki as well. If we go by this translation, then in summer we have the nor'wester, which is the Kalboishaki, which kind of is a very important storm during the year. Now, they shun the summer breeze that whispers through the trees. And what happens is that the leaves rustle, and they often, if the leaves touch you, they tickle you. So they are afraid of being tickled. So what happens is that, look, leaf and bird is the whirring sound of leaves, the rustle, the whirring sound of leaves. So what happens over here is that they avoid people, they avoid nature. So basically, the Ramgaroos are very lonely. As we can understand, they are very lonely. They are a closed coterie because beyond that coterie, everybody is enjoying a normal life. And they are very isolated. And they are cooped and cabined up in this existence. And look, then Sukumar says, "Swasti nei mone megher kone kone, হাসির বাষ্প উঠছে ফেপে কান পেতে তাই শুনে." And Satyajit translates it as, "They keep a wary eye on the autumn sky, for signs of mirth above the earth in foaming cumuli. Now, the cumulus cloud is a very interesting form of cloud which is seen in autumn. If you remember your Keats's to autumn, there Keats talks about the cumulus cloud as the clouds which look like the prison bars. They keep a wary eye, but look here, swasti nei mone. So it should have been they are restless at heart, but Shotoji translates it as they keep a wary eye. So they are watchful. মেঘের কোণে কোণে হাসির বাষ্প উঠছে ভেবে কান পেতে তাই শোনে. But nowhere is autumn mentioned. They keep a wary eye on the autumn sky. So the translation takes creative liberty once again over here, because nowhere does Sukumar mention the autumn sky. And look, here we have summer, and then we are suddenly jumping to autumn. So no matter whichever season it is, the Ramgaroo do not change. They do not alter in their behavior at all. On the autumn sky, for signs of mirth above the earth in foaming cumuli. হাসির বাষ্প উঠছে ফেপে কান পেতে তাই শোনে. So the vapors of laughter are foaming into the sky, and the sons of Rangaru are listening to that with their ears. So this is a very different translation than the original. It conveys a very different sense than the original. And this is why I always believe in first reading the original and then reading the translation, because this stanza once again is a creation of Satyajit. It is a transcreation rather than a translation. So they keep a wary eye on the autumn sky, and I have already said that they are part of the nature, but they have shunned nature. And they are always observant of nature itself, should nature betray them at any point. And then look, ঝোপের ধারে ধারে রাতের অন্ধকারে জোনাক জলে আলোর তালে হাসির ঠারে ঠারে. So near the bushes, in the darkness, the glowworms light up in the beats of light on the tempo of laughter. So this is the meaning. But look what Satyajit does to this. The darkness of the night brings them no respite, as fireflies extemporize their dances of delight. Now, this is a very beautiful translation. This stanza is a very beautiful translation, because in the darkness of the night, they have no respite. Although Satyajit skips the jhoper dhare dhare, that is the bushes, but in the darkness of the night brings them no respite is a very beautiful translation. That is, in darkness of the night, at night we are always in a state of comfort. We try to rest. Night gives us rest. Starting from the Renaissance, we have always seen that the night is always associated with sleep, peace, rest. But all of these things are denied to the sons of Ramgaroo. So they have no respite, because the fireflies, they extemporize. That is, they create an extempore dance. They create a spot dance of delight. And delight is also a form of joy. So they are dancing in delight. And you know, Rabindranath has a beautiful poem, O Jonaki, ki shukhe oi danaguli melecho. So, O fireflies, why have you opened those wings in delight? This is a song by Rabindranath Tagore. ও জোনাকি কি সুখে ওই ডানাগুলি মেলেছ, আধার সাজে ঘুমের মাঝে উল্লাসে প্রাণ ঢেলেছ. So in the dark evening, in the আধার সাজে ঘুমের মাঝে, in during sleep, উল্লাসে প্রাণ ঢেলেছ, you have poured your heart, you have over poured your heart in ecstasy, in pure ecstasy. So this can be a good cross reference to these lines. And look, হাসতে হাসতে যারা হচ্ছে কেবল সারা, রামগুরুরে লাগছে ব্যথা বুঝছে নাকি তারা. So those of you who are uh, being very overzealous in your laughter, the Ramgaroos are feeling pain. Don't you understand? This is the meaning of these lines. And look how Satyajit has translated these. Those of you who are jolly and feel to woo is folly must not refuse the Ramgaroos their right to melancholy. Now, this is a very, not a very straightforward but the translation, but the essence remains the same. So, look, then both Sukumar and Satyajit are suggesting that everyone has the right to their own mental makeup. If you are jolly, that is good. But if somebody is not feeling jolly at all, if somebody is always in a state of despair, then that is his or her own right, because that person is not disturbing anyone. Yes, if a friend is there in despair or if a family member is there in despair, we always come forward and ask them what has happened. We try to counsel them, we try to stand by them. That is what we always do. But that does not mean that that person does not have even the Indian constitution, or I think any constitution of any country does not have anything against melancholy. If somebody is melancholic, that is his or her own right. Yes, we think that it is good to be jolly, to feel woo is folly, but feeling woo is also a part of who we are, because you see, joy and sorrow, this is a cycle. And you cannot just cut in between and say, okay, I'll take this, you take that, or I'll take this, you take that. It's an entire package. All right, like if you are buying some potato chips, then it comes in a packet or it comes in a container. You can't just say that, okay, I'm very eco-friendly person, so don't give me the container, just give me the chips. That doesn't happen, right? It's all a package. And then look, রামগুরুরের বাসা ধমক দিয়ে ঠাসা হাসির হাওয়া বন্ধ সেটায় নিষেধ সেটায় আসা. This reminds me of a beautiful play by Rabindranath Tagore. The name of the play is Ocholayatan. I remember I enacted in this play when I was uh, in my school days, although in a different place, but I enacted in this play. Ocholayatan is basically a complex word because it uh, is composed of two words, ochol, which means stagnated, and ioton, which means an institution. So here Rabindranath is talking about a school, the school as Ocholayatan. So Rabindranath is talking about the school as Ocholayatan. And in that school, there is a character whose name is Ponchok. He is the breath of fresh air. And there is a guy called Mohaponchok and another teacher whose name is Upadhyay. Who are trying to keep this as the Ocholayatan, as the stagnated institution. And they inflict several painful uh, punishments to the students as well. They are the worshippers of a certain goddess whose name is Agjota Devi. and they do a lot of things in the name of this, in the name of the grandeur of the institution, or in the name of the grandeur of Akjota Devi and all. And there as well, it is very dhamok diye thasha. It is very filled with punishments, filled with scoldings. Their lair, and there is no laughter over there. So this reminds me of that play Ochalayatan. So look, let's read the translation. The Ramgarusian lair, bereft of sun and air, is doomed to be a monastery of permanent despair. And now look, this word monastery is very significant because a monastery to a certain extent is an Ochalayatan, a stagnated institution, where laughter, and I am not meaning as a Buddhist monastery, but I am meaning all. Monastery is a representative word here, which refers to all forms of stagnated institutions. The Ramgarusian layer, bereft of sun and air, it is bereft of sun and air. Why? Because it is always cold and dark. Because the Ramgarus have shunned nature. They are part of nature, but they have shunned nature. There is no air because it might tickle them. There is no sun because cannot the sun does not let melancholy prevail. Sunlight is very problematic for melancholy because it does not allow melancholy to prevail. A permanent despair. And look, Nishet Shetay Hasha, laughter is forbidden. It should have been translated as laughter is forbidden. And this reminds me of a very beautiful story by Oscar Wilde. I don't know if you have read this story, but when we were in school, we read this story. The name of the story was The Selfish Giant. And in this story, the selfish giant's house, the walls had this uh, message: trespassers will be prosecuted. And this to me is almost similar to this laughter is forbidden. But look, Satyajit tones this motto or propaganda down and makes it something very simpler to uh, of permanent despair, is doomed to be a monastery of permanent despair. And this permanence of despair is perhaps very important for Satyajit and for the civilization to explore about two kinds of characters. You say civilization has always looked at two kinds of characters: the unhappy wise and the happy fools. But Shukumar Rai poses one major question: are the wise always unhappy? Obviously, no. Are the fools always happy? Obviously, no. Then why can't we keep these denominators very fluid? Why can't there be happy wise? Why can't there be unhappy fools? No one at all times. There is a writer, a Renaissance writer whose name is Desiderius Erasmus, and he has written a book, a beautiful book. The name of the book is The Praise of Folly. And in this book, Erasmus says that no man at all times can be wise. So, no man at all times can be wise. And if no man at all times is wise, then perhaps every man is at times the fool. And if you go back to the Renaissance theatre, there the fool is a character who is but not the fool. The fool is a very important character in the Renaissance theatre. Look at King Lear's fool. Look at the fools of the other plays. Look at A Midsummer Night's Dream, where Puck plays the role of the fool, and Shakespeare gives him the major work of addressing the audience at the end of the play. So you see, Shukumar Rai is always pro fluidity in talking about the genres, in talking about the classifications or the clarifications. So that's it for this lecture. Hope to see you very soon in the next class. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. You can put them in the comment section. Thank you so much.